What is bankruptcy? Historically, bankruptcy is found first in the Bible, in chapter 15 in the book of Deuteronomy. It says at the end of every 7-year period, you shall have a relaxation of debts, which shall be observed as follows. Every creditor shall relax his claim on what he has loaned his neighbor. He must not press his neighbor, his kinsman, because a relaxation in honor of the Lord has been proclaimed. I have referred many times to the book of Job, which involves a man named Job making a fortune, losing that fortune, and making that fortune again, and losing it again and making it back. And even though the book of Job doesn't pertain to bankruptcy, the financial, emotional, physical, and spiritual hardships which Job endured and prevailed over are very relevant today for people experiencing financial troubles. Ancient Roman law also had the form of bankruptcy. The word bankruptcy literally means to break the bench. If someone was in business in the marketplace and couldn't pay their debts, creditors could break their bench or bankrupt them. And actually, bankruptcy was a legal device by creditors to collect debts against debtors. Debtors could not file for bankruptcy protection. Only creditors could file against the debtor. Under King Henry VIII, laws were enacted in England in the 1500s which have influenced our concept of bankruptcy. Where does bankruptcy come from? How did it get to the United States? The U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, empowers Congress to enact uniform laws on bankruptcy. And this is the legal authority to file bankruptcy where it comes from. Until 1898, the United States creditors could bring a bankruptcy petition against you, the debtor, but you, the debtor, could not file for bankruptcy. In 1898, the United States took a quantum leap due to the fact that there was considerable social unrest, which should have led to revolution due to the severe depression. Sound familiar? To allow social esteem or a safety valve, Congress enacted the concept of allowing the debtor for the first time in history to file for bankruptcy relief, called a voluntary petition in bankruptcy. Debtors can still petition you into bankruptcy in order to collect money from you, and that's called an involuntary petition. America was the new world, the land of opportunity, a chance for a fresh start, and that's the essential concept behind consumer bankruptcy law. Bankruptcy laws were enacted to address the issue of economic slavery. By allowing a consumer to file bankruptcy, Congress was addressing economic, social issues. Remember that it was in the 1860s that America addressed the issue of political slavery with the Civil War. Essentially, consumers have become economic slaves to what I call plastic heroin, or credit card debt. There were and are laws on the books against usury. Usury is the legal word for loan sharking or charging excess interest rates. As a practical matter, as we now have gambling in Connecticut, we have no real barriers to creditors charging 18 to 24% interest, 35%, which prior to 1950 would have been scandalous or loan sharking. Americans have $500 billion or half a trillion dollars in credit card debt. Credit card markets themselves the same way the cigarette industry and the drug pushers market themselves, through free samples, introductory offers, and almost forcing you to use a credit card to rent a car or a hotel room or purchase airline tickets. The reason we have laws on the books against loan sharking or usury is because the major religions of the world have held that charging interest on money is sinful and immoral. The Buddhist religion teaches that charging interest is sinful. The Muslim religion holds that charging interest on money is sinful. And the early Christians also taught that charging interest on money was sinful. Now, all the major economies of the world are charging interest, from Japan to the Mideast to Europe, etc. However, I believe that culturally one reason why the laws against usury or loan sharking came about is because in the West, Christians have held that either you couldn't charge interest on money and or it was sinful to charge interest. And as I said, we have almost every form of gambling here in Connecticut, when only 15 or 20 years ago there was no legalized gambling, and there was no practical prohibitions against charging any interest rate that you desire. Credit cards didn't exist in the U.S. until after World War II. And in the 1950s, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Metropolitan versus Travelers that where a contract is created will govern what interest rate could be charged. The contract was entered into Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and therefore, since the western states had little, if any, prohibition against charging whatever interest someone was willing to pay, the credit card company was allowed to charge 18% interest. Therefore, you'll notice on the credit cards that many have payments going to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Since that time, other states, in an attempt to lure businesses, Delaware especially, relaxed their laws, and we see credit card companies located in Delaware and in other states. Bankruptcy has traditionally, since 1898, acted as a pressure relief valve, an automatic shut-off system like an electrical panel where the power is overloaded, or a pressure relief valve in a boiler engine. It seems to be a principle of the universe that systems overload or get stuck and therefore have to be restarted or rebooted. In short, what has bankruptcy been? An opportunity for a fresh start, a new beginning. Presently, a new bankruptcy law entitled Bankruptcy Abuse Prevention and Consumer Protection Act of 2005, which was sponsored by MBNA and signed by President Bush. MBNA was one of Bush's 10 top contributors to his campaign to become president. They have enacted a complicated new law which says that if you are above a medium income, then you can't file Chapter 7, but must file a Chapter 13, which is a 3 to 5 year repayment plan. This law has gone into effect October 1st, 2005. You must now receive a certificate of credit counseling before you can file for bankruptcy from one of the credit counseling agencies which MBNA and other credit card companies support. And you must get a certificate of education before you can obtain a discharge of your debts. This has simply added more expense to the filing of a bankruptcy petition. And indeed, the law is far more complicated today than it has ever been in the past. Determining if you can safely file a Chapter 7 and obtain a fresh start is more complicated than before. But I want to tell you that I have been successfully filing many Chapter 7s under the new law, and I have successfully filed Chapter 7 for individuals who have been above the median income.